Hi all, welcome back. Before anything else, it's a fun idea if you let me know where you're watching from. Thanks. Be sure to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and get into it. I walk through the front door, keys clinking as I toss them onto the kitchen counter. The house is quiet, almost too quiet, with only the soft hum of the air conditioning breaking the silence. I wasn't supposed to be here. My flight got canceled, the meeting postponed, and now I'm home earlier than planned. The empty house feels foreign, like a place I don't quite belong anymore. Emily should be around, but there's no sign of her. No sound of footsteps, no faint call of my name. I brush it off. She's probably running errands or catching up with a friend. I walk into the living room and sink into the couch, trying to shake off the weariness of the past few weeks. Work has been relentless. Every deadline feels like a mountain to climb. And Emily, well, things between us have been strained. Not explosive, just cold, distant. I've noticed the way she's been pulling away, the small, almost imperceptible shifts in her behavior. She doesn't laugh at my jokes anymore. Her touch is absent, and the way she looks at me now is different. But I've been too distracted to care. Or maybe I've been pretending not to notice. I hear it then, a faint sound from outside, splashing. At first I think it's just the neighbor's pool filter, but then I realize something's off. The neighbors, Mark and Claire, are supposed to be out of town. I frown and stand, my curiosity piqued. I step toward the patio door, sliding it open as the humid air hits me. The sound of water is louder now, definitely coming from the direction of Mark's pool. Confused, I step onto the deck and head toward the fence that separates our yard from theirs. As I approach the wooden slats, I catch a glimpse of movement through a crack in the fence. There's someone in the pool. I feel my stomach tighten, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling with unease. What the hell? I peer through the gap, and my entire world shatters. It's Emily. She's in the pool, naked, her body pressed against Mark's. They're wrapped around each other like lovers, completely oblivious to the world around them. Emily's hair is slicked back, her skin glistening in the water, and Mark, he's grinning, his hands roaming over her as if he owns her. I feel like I've been hit by a truck. The air leaves my lungs, my vision narrowing, heart pounding in my chest. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. My wife, my Emily, the woman I've spent the last 10 years building a life with, she's here, in another man's arms, right next door. For a second, I just stand there, frozen, my mind races, trying to make sense of what I'm seeing. But there's no logic to this. Just betrayal, raw and brutal, cutting through me like a blade. And then Mark notices me. He looks right at me, and that smug bastard smirks. "Hey there, Daniel," he calls out, his voice casual, almost taunting. "Found a way to beat the heat. Want to join?" I feel my fists clench, every muscle in my body tensing with rage. My vision blurs, red seeping into the edges of my sight. Emily turns, her face pale, eyes wide with horror. She doesn't say anything, just stares at me, frozen in the moment, like she's waiting for me to explode. But I don't. Something inside me shifts, hardens. The shock gives way to something colder, sharper. I don't move, don't speak. I just stand there, staring at them, and in that silence, a decision forms, clear and unwavering. Revenge. It's immediate. It's burning through me with a singular focus. This isn't a moment of weakness, not some pathetic scene where I break down or beg for explanations. No, I know what I have to do. They'll pay for this. Both of them. I'll make sure of it. I turn, without a word, leaving them there in their twisted little paradise. I hear Emily's voice, faint, trembling behind me, but I don't stop. I don't care what she has to say, it's too late for that. Whatever excuses she's been telling herself to justify this, they mean nothing to me now. As I walk back through my house, everything feels different, like I'm seeing it for the first time. The life I've built, the marriage, the home, none of it means anything anymore. It's all a lie, a facade. I don't smash things or scream. That's not who I am. My anger doesn't explode outward. It turns inward, fueling me, sharpening my focus. There's no rush. I'm not going to destroy them with reckless rage. No, this will be methodical, precise. I'm going to dismantle them piece by piece until there's nothing left. And when it's done, they'll know exactly who did it. The thought calms me, fills me with a sense of control that I haven't felt in months. I sit down at the kitchen table, my mind already racing with possibilities. I can see it all now, the steps I'll take, the moves I'll make. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. I close the door behind me, my hands trembling. Not from shock, but from the rage boiling just beneath the surface. My mind is still processing what I saw. Emily wrapped around Mark like he's hers, like I don't exist. The betrayal is searing, but I don't explode. No, that would be too easy, too predictable. I want more than just to shout and scream. I want control. Walking through the kitchen, I focus on breathing, keeping myself steady. I feel the weight of my keys in my hand, the smooth wood of the counter under my fingertips as I place them down. Every small detail of this house that I thought was mine feels different now, like it belongs to a stranger. How long has she been lying to me? How long has she been sneaking next door to let Mark take what's mine? My phone buzzes on the table and I glance at the screen. It's a text from Emily. Can we talk? Please. I let out a sharp breath through my nose, a bitter smile creeping onto my face. She must have known something was wrong. The moment I left without a word, the way I just stared at them and walked away. But I'm not ready to hear her excuses. Not yet. I toss the phone aside and lean against the counter, my mind already shifting gears. She wants to talk? Fine. But I won't let her off with a simple apology. This isn't about forgiveness. This is about making them both suffer. Mark thinks he can humiliate me, flaunt his little conquest with that disgusting smirk. He'll pay. And Emily, she'll learn what it feels like to have her life torn apart, piece by piece. I pace the kitchen, my thoughts racing. I could confront her now, drag the truth out of her, make her admit everything. But where's the satisfaction in that? I want to make her squirm, make them both suffer. I grab a chair and sit at the kitchen table, staring out the window. My thoughts settle into something cold, calculated. I won't rush this. I'll take my time, be methodical. They won't even see it coming. I reach for my laptop, the familiar weight of it grounding me as I open it and start digging. First, I need to understand the scope of their betrayal. How long has this been going on? I need facts, proof, evidence that will give me control over them. I pull up our shared bank account. Scrolling through the transactions, nothing stands out immediately, but then I notice the small, consistent withdrawals. Always at odd times, always the same amount. Emily has been siphoning money just enough to go unnoticed. For what? A private account? I smirk. She thinks she's clever, but she's sloppy. This will be easy. Next, I check her phone records. I don't need her permission. I already know her passwords. I pull up her recent call log, and sure enough, there's Mark's number. Frequent calls, late at night, during the day when I'm at work. My stomach twists, but I push the emotion down. This isn't the time to feel, this is the time to act. I spend the next hour collecting everything. Her texts, emails, anything that shows me how deep this rabbit hole goes. It's worse than I imagined. They've been meeting regularly, planning weekends together, even considering running away. The thought makes me sick, but it also fuels the fire inside me. They think they can escape? Not a chance. My phone buzzes again. Emily calling this time. I ignore it. She's panicking, but that only gives me more power. Let her worry. Let her wonder what I'm planning. I lean back in my chair, my mind racing through the possibilities. There's no satisfaction in simply confronting them. I want to destroy them. Mark's career, his reputation, Emily's social circle, her standing in this perfect little community we've built together. I know things about both of them, things that could ruin them, and I'm going to use every bit of it. A plan begins to form, sharp and precise. First, I'll target Mark. He's arrogant, careless, and that will be his downfall. I know people at his company. It won't take much to plant seeds of doubt, to suggest that maybe he's been acting irresponsibly, that he's not as trustworthy as he seems. I've seen him at the local bar, a little too friendly with clients, a little too loose with company secrets. A few well-placed tips to the right people, and his career will start to crumble. Then Emily. She's more complicated, but I know her weaknesses. She craves attention, validation from others. I'll turn that against her. The text messages, the calls, the stolen money, I'll leak them, but not all at once. Little by little, I'll feed the gossip mill, let her watch as her perfect life falls apart, her friends turning against her reputation destroyed. She'll have nowhere to run, and when she's at her lowest, I'll be there watching as she realizes what she's lost. The thought of it calms me, gives me a sense of control I haven't felt in weeks. I'll make them both regret this, make them wish they'd never crossed me. I smile, the coldness settling in my chest like a stone. This will be my masterpiece. The doorbell rings, snapping me out of my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. I stand and walk to the door, my heart pounding as I open it. It's Emily. Her face is pale, her eyes wide with fear. She knows. She knows I'm not the man she thought I was. I can see it in the way she hesitates on the doorstep, her hands trembling as she clutches her phone. Daniel, please, can we talk? Her voice is small, pleading. I stare at her for a moment, considering my options. She looks so fragile, so vulnerable. A part of me wants to let her in, to hear her out, to understand why she did this. But the other part, the colder, stronger part, knows this is all part of her game. She's trying to manipulate me, to soften the blow, to make me forgive her. No, the word comes out harsher than I intended, but I don't care. I step back, closing the door in her face. I hear her gasp, the soft sound of her hand hitting the wood as she pleads for me to let her in. But I don't stop. I lock the door, turn my back, and walk away. She'll get nothing from me. Not yet. I sit back down at the kitchen table, my mind spinning with possibilities. She thinks she can reason with me, but she has no idea how far I'm willing to go. I pull out my phone and type a quick message to one of my contacts at Mark's company. A small nudge, nothing too overt, but enough to start the wheels turning. They'll both fall, and when they do, I'll be there watching it all burn. Just as I'm about to set my phone down, it buzzes with another message. Emily again. She's frantic, begging for a chance to explain. I smirk. Let her beg. Let her twist herself in knots, wondering what's coming next. She has no idea what I'm capable of, what I'm planning, but she'll find out soon enough. I delete the message and set the phone aside, leaning back in my chair. The cold, calculated part of me takes over completely now, pushing aside any lingering feelings of hurt or betrayal. This isn't about emotions anymore. It's about power, control, and making them both suffer for what they've done. I sit there for a long time staring out the window as the sun sets, casting the yard in long shadows. The night is still, quiet, perfect for what's coming next. They've underestimated me, both of them, but they'll see soon enough. By the time I'm done, they'll wish they'd never met. The anger has settled into something darker now, more precise. It no longer burns hot, but cold, sharp as a blade. I wake up thinking about them, and I go to bed with their betrayal still gnawing at me. Emily and Mark. The thought of their bodies tangled together, their secret smirks behind my back, drives me harder every day. I've started keeping a notebook, listing every detail, every idea that comes to mind. I keep it hidden in my office where Emily never goes. She's too busy these days, too preoccupied with covering her tracks. The irony is, I already know everything. I'm just watching her unravel, waiting for the right moment to tighten the noose. I've placed cameras around the house, not just the obvious ones. These are small, undetectable. One in our bedroom, another in the kitchen, and two in Mark's backyard. It was easy. Mark doesn't lock his side gate, and at night I slip in unnoticed. The cameras feed directly to my phone, giving me a front row seat to their lies. Emily thinks she's being clever. The way she checks her phone constantly, the private conversations that stop the moment I enter a room. But I see it all. The stolen kisses behind our fence, the hurried late-night phone calls when she thinks I'm asleep. And Mark, he's just as predictable. I watch him in his backyard, always looking so self-assured, like he's invincible. That cocky grin will be gone soon enough. The real fun starts at work. Mark has a reputation for being the life of the party. He drinks with clients, gets too close to the women he works with. I've started spreading rumors, carefully planted whispers about his behavior. It doesn't take much, just a few well-timed remarks to the right people. His boss is old-fashioned, the type who doesn't tolerate scandals. Mark doesn't know it yet, but his career is about to nosedive. And the best part? No one will ever trace it back to me. I've also started keeping tabs on Emily's finances. She thinks she's hidden her secret accounts well, but I've found them easily. Little withdrawals here and there, enough to cover their rendezvous. I know she's using that money to fund their little affair, probably dreaming of the day they can run off together. That dream will shatter soon. One night I watched them on the cameras. Mark's in his backyard and Emily sneaks over, just like she always does. They're careful not to stay out in the open too long, but not careful enough. Emily sits on the edge of the pool, her legs dangling in the water, while Mark leans over her, whispering things I can't hear. Her face lights up when she looks at him, the kind of smile she used to save for me. It's sickening, but tonight something is different. I notice a tension in Emily. She keeps glancing toward the fence, toward our house. Mark tries to kiss her, but she pulls back slightly, her smile faltering. I can see it in her eyes. She's afraid. She knows I'm onto her, even if she doesn't fully understand how deep I've gone. I close the app on my phone and lean back in my chair. Emily's starting to crack. And that's exactly what I need. Let her stew in her guilt. Let her feel like she's losing control. The more she doubts herself, the easier it will be for me to finish this. The next morning, Emily is in the kitchen making coffee. She's jittery, distracted. I stand in the doorway watching her as she stirs her cup absent-mindedly. "You've been out a lot lately?" I say casually. She flinches but quickly recovers, turning to face me with a forced smile. "Just busy with errands, you know." I nod slowly, taking a step closer. I'm sure that's all it is. Her eyes flicker with something, guilt, fear. It's hard to tell. She mumbles something about needing to get to work and hurries past me, her coffee barely touched. I let her go. I want her to feel safe, to think she's still in control. It'll make the fall that much sweeter. Later that day, I get a call from one of my contacts at Mark's company. The rumors I started are spreading fast. There's talk of an internal investigation. If things go the way I've planned, Mark will be on thin ice within a week. His world is about to collapse, and he has no idea. That evening, I sit in the dark, staring at the screen of my phone, watching Mark's backyard again. But tonight, something is off. The house is quiet, too quiet. There's no sign of Emily or Mark. I feel a ripple of unease crawl up my spine, then the sound of a car pulling into the driveway next door. The headlights cut through the night, and I hear the faint sound of a door closing. But it's not Mark or Emily, it's Claire, Mark's wife. She wasn't supposed to be back for another few days. I watch as she gets out of the car, her movements hurried, almost frantic. She fumbles with her keys before heading inside. A few minutes pass, and the tension in the air is palpable. I sit up, leaning closer to the screen, expecting something to happen. Sure enough, the back door of Mark's house opens, and Claire steps out, looking around the yard like she's searching for something. Or someone. I click on the camera audio, turning it up just in time to hear her muttering under her breath. She knows, or at least she suspects something. This is an unexpected complication, but it might work in my favor. Claire's smart, sharper than Mark. If she figures out what's going on, she could become a powerful ally, or a dangerous threat. Either way, I need to keep an eye on her. I watch as she walks back into the house, her expression hard. I can only imagine what kind of confrontation is about to happen behind those walls. But for now, I sit back, letting things unfold. The pieces are moving, and I'm still in control. The next few days are tense. Emily continues to act nervous, constantly checking her phone, her mind clearly elsewhere. Mark is less present too, probably distracted by the trouble at work and the growing suspicion in his own home. Claire doesn't say much when I see her, but her eyes are sharp, always watching. She knows something's wrong. She just doesn't know how deep it goes. One evening, Emily comes home late again. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open, pretending to work. She walks in, her face flushed, and tries to smile at me. It's a pathetic attempt at normalcy. "Long day?" I ask, not looking up from the screen. "Yeah," she mutters, taking off her jacket. I was just out with some friends." "Friends," I repeat, glancing up at her, my voice dripping with skepticism. She freezes for a second, her eyes meeting mine. There's a flicker of panic before she quickly turns away, busying herself with her bag. I stand up slowly, crossing the room to where she stands. I stop just behind her, close enough to feel the tension radiating off her. "You don't have to lie, Emily," I say softly. Her body stiffens, and for a moment the silence stretches between us, heavy and suffocating. "I'm not lying," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "Sure you're not." I lean in closer, my breath hot against her ear. "But I see everything." She turns to face me, her eyes wide with fear. For a split second, I see the Emily I used to know, the woman who trusted me, who loved me. But that Emily is long gone, replaced by this stranger, this liar. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammers, taking a step back. I let her retreat, my smile cold and calculating. "You will?" She stares at me, trying to read my face, but she's too scared to ask any real questions. I can see her mind racing, trying to piece together what I know, how much I've seen, but I won't give her the satisfaction of an answer. Not yet. The next morning, I'm in my office when my phone buzzes. It's a message from one of my contacts at Mark's company. "Looks like your boy's in trouble. The investigation is moving forward. Could be career-ending." I smile, satisfied. It's all coming together. Mark's career is crumbling, and Emily's world is unraveling around her. But this is just the beginning. They think they can still fix things, still salvage their pathetic little affair. They have no idea how deep I've buried them. Later that day, I notice Claire in the backyard again. She's pacing, her face tense. She knows something, but I'm not sure how much. I'll need to be careful with her, make sure she doesn't get too close to the truth. But there's a part of me that's curious. What would she do if she found out everything? That evening, Emily doesn't come home at all. She sends a text around midnight, claiming she's staying at a friend's house. I don't bother responding. Instead, I sit in the dark, my mind racing with plans. The next phase is coming, and it's going to be brutal. By the time this is over, none of them will have anything left. Not their careers, their reputations, or their love. And when it all falls apart, I'll be standing there watching them break. It's all about timing. The trap I've set it is delicate, every piece in its place, ready to snap shut. I know I have to act soon, before Claire unravels more than I want her to. She's been watching Mark and Emily, circling closer to the truth. I can't let her blow this up before I've had the chance to pull all the strings. But maybe, just maybe I can use her. She's angry, she's suspicious, and that gives me an edge. Tonight, everything comes to a head. I arrange a dinner. I text Mark, Emily, and Claire. Casual, nothing out of the ordinary. "Come over, let's catch up." The perfect setting for a confrontation. They all agree, clueless to the storm about to hit them. I sit in the kitchen, the silence heavy around me, sipping a glass of whiskey as I go over the plan in my head. Every move is calculated. Mark's cocky facade, Emily's guilt, Claire's suspicions. I'll bring them all to the surface. I want them to tear each other apart. The doorbell rings. Right on time. I stand and take a deep breath, letting the familiar feeling of control wash over me. I open the door to see Mark standing there, that same smug grin on his face. He thinks he's got this under control. He's wrong. "Daniel," he says, nodding as he steps inside, casually looking around. "Looks like we'll finally get to relax a bit." I nod, smiling. Yeah, should be a good night. Emily arrives next, eyes darting around nervously as she steps through the door. I catch her glance at Mark, the subtle way her shoulders stiffen when she sees him. She's already unraveling. Perfect. Claire's the last to arrive, her expression tight, like she knows something is about to go wrong but can't put her finger on it. She steps inside, giving me a brief nod, then scans the room, her eyes landing on Mark. She's been piecing it together and I can see her mind working. She's close, closer than either of them realizes. We sit down for dinner, the tension thick in the air. I keep the conversation light at first, small talk. Mark, cocky as ever, carries most of it, cracking jokes, making offhanded comments that grate on me. Emily's quiet, barely eating. Claire's gaze darts between the three of us, watching, waiting. She knows something's wrong. I let the silence stretch for a few moments before I make my move. I set my fork down, leaning back in my chair, and look directly at Mark. So, Mark, how's work going? Heard some rumors that things might be getting complicated. Mark's smile falters for just a second before he recovers. Oh, you know how it is, office politics, nothing I can't handle. I nod slowly, not breaking eye contact. Funny though, I've been hearing more than just office politics. Something about an investigation? Mark's face tightens. I can see the panic flicker in his eyes, but he forces a laugh. You know how people talk, blowing things out of proportion. Emily's fork clatters against her plate as she stares at him, wide-eyed. She didn't know about this, and that's the first crack. I see the doubt wash over her, the realization that maybe Mark isn't as in control as she thought. Claire's watching them both now, her expression unreadable, but I can tell she's filing everything away, processing it. I lean forward, my voice calm but sharp. You really should be careful, Mark. Once rumors start, they're hard to contain. Mark shifts in his seat, his cocky exterior slipping. I'm fine, Daniel, really. It's nothing. Claire clears her throat, finally speaking up. Funny, I heard about it too. From someone at your office. She keeps her gaze locked on Mark, her tone cold. Emily looks between them, confusion and fear clouding her expression. What are you talking about? Mark opens his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. You didn't tell her, did you, about the trouble at work? Emily's eyes snap to Mark. What's going on? Mark glares at me, his anger barely contained. It's nothing, Emily. It's just a misunderstanding. But Emily's face says it all. She doesn't believe him. She's starting to realize how little she knows, how many secrets Mark's been keeping. I sit back, watching it unfold, enjoying every second of it. Claire leans forward, her voice low and deliberate. I think it's time we all stop pretending everything's fine. Mark, I know something's going on. I've known for a while. The room goes silent, tension crackling in the air. Emily stares at Claire, her face pale, her hands trembling. Mark's jaw tightens, but he doesn't speak. He knows he's trapped. I decide to push things further. Claire, what exactly do you think is going on? She turns to me, her eyes narrowing slightly. I think Mark's been hiding more than just his problems at work. Emily's face drains of color. She knows what's coming, but she's too paralyzed to stop it. I've been noticing things, Claire continues, her gaze shifting to Emily. You've been distracted, Emily, sneaking around, acting strange. I may not have all the pieces, but I know something's wrong. Emily stares at her, unable to speak. I can see the guilt written all over her face, the weight of it pressing down on her. This is the moment. Everything I've built toward is coming to a head. Emily? Claire's voice is calm but sharp, demanding an answer. Emily's lips tremble as she finally speaks, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not what you think. Mark shifts uncomfortably in his chair, clearly realizing that this is spiraling out of his control. But I'm not done yet. I lean forward, my voice cutting through the tension. Emily, why don't you tell Claire what's really been going on? Her eyes snap to mine, panic flashing across her face. She looks at Mark for help, but he's frozen, his hands clenched into fists on the table. He knows this is the end game. Emily stammers, her words tripping over themselves. I can't. You can't what? Claire's voice is ice cold now. You can't admit you've been lying to all of us. Tears well up in Emily's eyes as she looks down at her hands, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Mark shifts again, his face hardening. He's ready to bolt, but he knows it's too late. Claire leans back in her chair, crossing her arms. I deserve the truth, Emily. Whatever it is, just say it. And that's when it happens. Emily breaks, the dam of guilt and lies finally crumbling. I'm sorry, she whispers, her voice shaking. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. Claire's face hardens, her eyes flashing with anger. What didn't you mean for, Emily? What did you do? Emily glances at Mark, then back at Claire. It was a mistake. I've been seeing Mark. The confession hangs in the air, thick and suffocating. Claire's eyes widen for a split second before her face goes blank, emotion draining away like a switch has been flipped. Mark stays silent, his face grim. He knew this was coming, but that doesn't make it any easier to watch. Claire stands slowly, the chair scraping against the floor. You've been seeing my husband? Emily sobs, her hands covering her face. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Claire's voice is deathly calm. You've been having an affair with my husband. Emily doesn't respond, but the answer is clear. Claire turns to Mark, her expression unreadable. How long? Mark finally speaks, his voice low and defensive. Claire, it's not. How long? Claire snaps, her voice cutting through the room like a whip. Mark swallows hard. A few months. Claire's eyes flicker with something, anger, hurt, maybe both, but she stays composed. She takes a deep breath, then looks at me. Did you know? I nod slowly, meeting her gaze. Yes. She doesn't seem surprised. She nods once, then turns back to Emily. You're pathetic, she says, her voice dripping with disgust. You ruined everything for what? Him, she gestures toward Mark, her contempt clear. Emily can't speak, her sobs filling the silence. Claire takes a step toward Mark, her voice low and venomous. You think you can just throw everything away? For this? Mark doesn't respond, his eyes downcast. Claire shakes her head, disgust written all over her face. You're a coward. She turns on her heel, heading for the door. But before she leaves, she pauses, looking back at me. I'm done with him. But I'm not done with this. If you want to burn their lives down, I'm with you. Her words hang in the air for a moment before she walks out, slamming the door behind her. I stand there watching Emily fall apart, her sobs echoing in the silence. Mark doesn't move, his face hard and unreadable. I've won. I've torn them apart. But Claire's words linger in my mind. She wants in on this. She wants to destroy them just as badly as I do. And that changes everything. I glance at Emily, broken and defeated at the table. Then at Mark, who looks like he's already lost the fight. This isn't over. Not yet. I sit in the dim light of my office, staring at the screen. The glow from the laptop flickers slightly, casting shadows across the room. Mark's career is in free fall. His reputation is shattered. In Emily, well, she's already drowning in the mess I've created. But there's no satisfaction in it. Not yet. Something is missing. I've orchestrated the perfect revenge, but I feel hollow, like the victory is slipping through my fingers. Claire, she's the wild card, and I underestimated her. When she offered to join me in this, to help take them both down, I thought it would be simple. We both wanted the same thing, didn't we? To destroy them. I figured her thirst for vengeance would burn as bright as mine. But the more I see of her, the more I realize how far she's willing to go, farther than I ever intended. She's feeding off this chaos, enjoying it in a way that unsettles me. There's a darkness in her, something I hadn't anticipated. I get a text from Claire. She's got information on Mark that could ruin him completely, not just professionally, but personally. A scandal that would leave him with nothing. Part of me wants to jump at it, to finish this once and for all, but another part hesitates. Something about Claire's eagerness feels wrong, like she's no longer just after justice. She wants to burn everything down, including me if she has to. I need to be careful. Later that night, I meet Claire at a bar downtown. It's a quiet place, the kind where no one asks questions. She's sitting at a corner table when I arrive. a glass of red wine in front of her, eyes sharp and focused. There's a tension between us now, something unspoken but growing. "I've got what you need," she says, sliding a folder across the table toward me. Her tone is casual, but her eyes betray something else, something colder. I don't touch the folder yet. Instead, I study her, trying to gauge her intentions. "What exactly are you planning, Claire?" She leans back, smirking. "We agreed to take them down. This will do it. You want him ruined, don't you?" "This will end him." I glance at the folder but don't open it. "I wanted them to pay, yes, but this feels different. What's your endgame?" Her smile fades slightly, and she narrows her eyes at me. "My endgame? Mark destroyed my life. He made a fool out of me, just like he did you. Don't tell me you're getting cold feet now." It's not cold feet. It's something else. A sense that I'm losing control, that Claire is steering this ship now, not me. I need to take it back. "I just want to be sure this is about revenge, Claire, and not something else. You seem invested." She laughs, the sound cold and sharp. "Of course I'm invested. My husband betrayed me with your wife. I want him to suffer." She leans forward, her voice dropping. "But I think you're hesitating because you're starting to realize something. You're enjoying this, aren't you? The power, the control. It feels good, doesn't it?" I say nothing, but she's not wrong. There's a twisted satisfaction in watching them fall apart, in pulling the strings and watching them dance. But with Claire, it's different. She's reveling in the destruction, and that scares me. I take the folder and stand. I'll think about it. She watches me, her smile returning, but it's cold now, calculating. "Don't take too long, Daniel. Mark's already on the edge. One more push, and he's done." I leave the bar, the folder heavy in my hand, but I don't open it. Not yet. Something about this feels wrong, and I can't shake the feeling that Claire's playing me. The next day, I decide to confront Emily. She's been a wreck since the dinner, barely speaking, her guilt weighing her down. I find her in the kitchen, staring blankly out the window. "Emily," I say, my voice calm but firm. She turns to look at me, her eyes red from crying. "What are you going to do?" she whispers, her voice trembling. I step closer, keeping my tone steady. "That depends on you." She flinches slightly, but doesn't break eye contact. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I don't know how it got this far. I don't let her off the hook that easily. You knew what you were doing. You didn't care about the consequences." Tears well up in her eyes again, but I don't soften. I can't. "I know," she whispers. "I made a mistake. But Mark, he's—" "Don't!" I cut her off, my voice sharp. "Don't try to defend him." She falls silent, her shoulders slumping as she stares at the floor. I can see how broken she is, how lost. A part of me wants to comfort her, to end this torment. But the other part, the darker part, wants her to keep feeling the weight of her choices. I step closer, my voice lower now, almost a whisper. "You're going to tell me everything, Emily, every detail." She nods, wiping at her tears. "Okay." For the next hour, she spills everything, the affair, the lies, the moments I never saw. And with each word, my anger builds again, not hot and explosive, but cold and focused. I stay calm, listening, absorbing it all. By the time she's finished, she's a sobbing mess, broken and fragile. "I'm sorry," she whispers again, her voice cracking. I don't respond. Instead, I turn and leave the room, letting her guilt consume her. That night, I open the folder Claire gave me. Inside is everything I need to destroy Mark: emails, photos, documents. If I leak this, he'll lose everything: his true bisham, his reputation, even his family. Claire's done her homework. She's left nothing to chance. But as I stare at the evidence, and a thought crosses my mind: what happens after? Once Mark is destroyed, once Emily is a shell of her former self, what's left for me? I've built my life around this revenge, and now with the end in sight, I feel empty. I close the folder, setting it aside. I need to talk to Claire. The next morning, I meet her again, this time at a coffee shop. She's already sitting when I arrive. her demeanor calm and collected. You have everything you need, she says, not even bothering with pleasantries. What's the holdup? I sit across from her, studying her face. What happens after this, Claire? She raises an eyebrow, surprised by the question. After, Mark and Emily are finished. You move on. Move on to what? I ask, leaning forward slightly. This revenge. It's consumed everything. What's left after that? She smiles, but it's not a warm smile. It's cold, calculated. You're overthinking it, Daniel. You wanted them to pay. This is how we make them pay. But I'm not so sure anymore. I glance down at the folder in front of me, then back at her. And what about you, Claire? What do you get out of this? She leans back, crossing her arms. I get closure. I shake my head. No, it's more than that. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Her smile fades slightly. Of course I am. They deserve it. And what if they're not enough? What if this isn't enough for you? She stares at me for a long moment, her eyes narrowing. What are you getting at, Daniel? I hold her gaze, feeling the weight of the moment. I'm saying I don't trust you. Her expression hardens, and she leans forward, her voice low and dangerous. You think you can back out now after everything? I don't flinch. I think I need to be careful who I trust. Claire laughs, but there's no humor in it. You're in too deep, Daniel. You think you can just walk away from this? From me? I'm not walking away, I say, my voice firm. But I'm not letting you control this either. She leans back again, her smile returning, but it's colder than ever. You think you're still in control? You have no idea what I'm capable of. I stare at her, my mind racing. She's dangerous, more dangerous than I ever realized. If I don't act fast, she'll turn this whole thing against me. As I leave the coffee shop, my mind is already working through the next steps. Claire has the power to destroy Mark, but she also has the power to destroy me. I need to outmaneuver her before she makes her move. The final act is a woman, and I have to make sure I'm the one who comes out on top. Back at home, I take the folder and lock it away. I need to rethink my strategy. Claire's thirst for destruction is out of control, and if I'm not careful, I'll end up as collateral damage in her game. I've come too far to let that happen. I sit at my desk, staring at the wall, my mind racing. The path to revenge has been long, twisted, and dark. But now, as I stand on the edge of it, I realize something. I'm not sure I'll ever be satisfied. Even if I destroy them all, what will it leave me with? A hollow victory? A life filled with bitterness? I glance at the clock. Time is running out. The final moves are coming, and I need to be ready. I sit at my desk, the weight of everything pressing down on me. The folder with Mark's final undoing is still in the drawer, unopened since that night with Claire. She thinks she's holding the strings now, but she doesn't know me, not really. I've been playing the long game, keeping control even when it felt like it was slipping away. Claire's a loose cannon, and that makes her dangerous. But I'm not going to let her take this from me. She texts me again, another demand, another reminder that she's expecting me to move forward with her plan. Her thirst for revenge has become insatiable, and that's my leverage. I don't respond. Instead, I get up and pace the room, my mind calculating my next move. Claire's enjoying this too much. The power, the destruction. She's lost in it. I need to reel her in, play her game, but on my terms. She wants Mark and Emily destroyed? Fine, but I'll be the one to decide how it ends. I grab my phone and call her. The line clicks, and I hear her voice, calm, collected, and already anticipating my next move. Daniel, finally, ready to finish this? I've been thinking, I say, keeping my tone neutral. We need to be smart about this. Her laugh is cold. Smart? Daniel, we've already got everything we need. It's time to act. Don't tell me you're having second thoughts. Not second thoughts, I say, choosing my words carefully. I just don't trust you. There's a pause on the line, and when she speaks again, her voice is sharp. You don't trust me? After everything I've done? I don't trust anyone anymore, Claire. Not after what I've been through. But if we're going to finish this, We need to be sure we're both on the same page. She's silent for a moment, then says, fine, meet me tonight, my place. We'll go over everything. I hang up without another word, the decision already made. Tonight is the night I take back control. Claire's house is quiet when I arrive, the street dark except for the faint glow of a porch light. I walk up the steps, my heart steady, my mind sharp. I knock once and the door swings open. She's standing there, dressed casually, but there's a tension in her posture, a glint in her eyes that tells me she's still in control, or at least she thinks she is. Come in, she says, stepping aside. I walk in, the air thick with unspoken tension. We sit in her living room and she pours 2 glasses of wine. I don't touch mine. You've got the folder? She asks, her eyes narrowing slightly. I've got it, I say, but before we do anything, I need to know one thing. She raises an eyebrow, waiting. What happens to me after this? I ask, my voice calm. You seem very invested in all of this, but once Mark and Emily are done, what happens to us, to you and me? Her smile is slow, calculated. We go our separate ways. You get your revenge. I get mine. And if I don't trust you to walk away, she leans forward, her smile never faltering. Then you'll have to make a choice, Daniel. Either you trust me or you try to stop me. But you won't win. The challenge hangs in the air, and I know now what I have to do. I'm not here to stop you, Claire, I say, my voice steady. I'm here to end this. She watches me for a moment, then nods, satisfied. Good. Let's ruin them. But as I sit there, I realize something. This isn't about Mark and Emily anymore. Not for Claire. It's about power, control. She wants to destroy everything, including me, if she has to. I reach into my pocket, pulling out a flash drive instead of the folder. Her eyes flick to it, curiosity piqued. What's that? She asks. This is the real endgame, I say, leaning back in my chair. Everything we need to bury Mark, yes. But also everything I've got on you. Her eyes narrow, suspicion clouding her face. What do you mean? I mean, I've been watching you too, Claire. You think I didn't notice how you've been playing me? How far you're willing to go? I've got emails, conversations, evidence of everything you've done to manipulate this situation. If this goes wrong, I take you down with them. For the first time, her smile slips, and I see the flash of fear in her eyes. She stands abruptly, her glass of wine tipping over, spilling red across the table. You son of a... She starts, but I cut her off. Sit down, Claire. I say, my voice cold, my eyes locked on hers. This is how it ends. We finish Mark and Emily, but you walk away, quietly. No more threats, no more games. Or this drive goes to the police. She stares at me, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Her mind is racing, I can see it in her eyes. But I've backed her into a corner. She has no choice. Slowly, she sits back down, her face pale. You really think you've won, don't you? I know I have, I say, slipping the drive back into my pocket. Now let's finish this. She says nothing, but the tension between us is palpable. I can feel the anger radiating off her, the hatred burning behind her eyes. But I've won. She knows it, and I know it. We spend the next hour going over the final details, how we'll leak the information, how we'll dismantle Mark's life piece by piece. It's clinical, detached, just like I wanted. By the time I leave her house, everything is set in motion. But as I drive home, a strange emptiness settles over me. I've won. I've outplayed Claire, ruined Mark and Emily, and taken control of the situation. But there's no satisfaction, no triumph, just a hollow sense of completion, like finishing a game I never wanted to play in the first place. The next few days unfold exactly as planned. Mark's reputation is obliterated, he's fired, his name dragged through the mud, and his personal life becomes public fodder. Emily, broken and ashamed, disappears into herself, leaving me in the cold silence of our home. Claire keeps her hysteria as promised, though I know she's still simmering beneath the surface. And yet, with everything falling apart around me, I feel nothing. One night, I sit in the dark, staring at the empty space where Emily used to sit beside me. The revenge is complete. The plan worked. But the weight of it hangs over me like a shroud, pressing down until I can barely breathe. The doorbell rings, breaking the silence. I stand, walking slowly toward the door, knowing who it is before I even open it. Claire. She's standing there, her face unreadable, her eyes colder than ever. "What do you want?" I ask, my voice flat. She steps inside without waiting for an invitation, closing the door behind her. "You think you've won, don't you?" I don't respond, just watch her, waiting for the next move. She reaches into her coat and pulls out a small envelope, tossing it onto the table. "You forgot something." I frown, picking up the envelope and tearing it open. Inside is a single sheet of paper, an email sent from my account to Mark's boss, leaking the information that started his downfall. "What is this?" I ask, though I already know. "I made sure it looked like it came from you," she says, her voice calm, almost casual. "If anything happens to me, this gets out, and you go down with Mark." I stare at her, feeling the cold realization settle in. She's outplayed me. "So now what?" I ask, my voice low. "Now, but you," she says, smiling that cold, calculated smile. "Now you live with it, just like I do." And with that, she turns and walks out, leaving me standing there, the weight of everything crashing down around me. I've won, but at what cost? I sit alone in the dark, the weight of it all pressing down on me. The house is silent, eerily so. Emily is gone, not physically, but mentally. She's broken, a shadow of herself, and I barely recognize the woman who once shared this space with me. There's nothing left between us, not after everything that's happened. The revenge, the careful dismantling of Mark's life, the slow unraveling of Emily's sanity. It's all played out exactly as I planned. I won, but the victory is hollow. I stare at the walls of the house that once felt like home and realize that none of it matters anymore. I lean back in the chair, my mind replaying every step of the journey that brought me here. Every choice, every move was calculated. But now that it's over, I feel nothing. The anger that once fueled me has burned out, leaving behind a cold emptiness. Claire was right about one thing. Revenge doesn't bring satisfaction. Not in the way I imagine. The text from her sits unread on my phone. She's been silent for days, and I know better than to trust that silence. Claire is out there watching, waiting, and I can't shake the feeling that she's going to make her move soon. I underestimated her once, and it almost cost me everything. I won't make that mistake again. I grab the phone and scroll through the messages she sent me earlier, my finger hovering over the most recent one. It's a simple question. Are you ready for the final act? She's still hungry for more. But I'm done. I toss the phone aside and stand pacing the room. The house feels too big, too empty now. Emily's things are still here, scattered like remnants of a life I don't recognize. I move through the rooms, my footsteps echoing in the quiet, and I find myself in our bedroom. The bed is unmade, the sheets tangled, like a battlefield after a war. I remember the nights we used to spend here, the intimacy that once existed between us, but it feels like a distant memory. I open the closet, rifling through Emily's clothes, searching for something, anything that might remind me of the woman she used to be. But all I find are reminders of the lies, the betrayal, and the distance that grew between us. A wave of anger surges through me, but it's brief. It fizzles out just as quickly as it came. There's no point in being angry anymore. It's all over. I leave the bedroom and head downstairs, pouring myself a drink in the kitchen. The bourbon burns as it goes down, but I welcome the warmth, the distraction. I sit at the table staring out the window into the darkness beyond. The silence is oppressive, and I find myself missing the chaos, the thrill of the game. I think about Claire again, about the way she smiled when we first talked about taking them down. She was always one step ahead, always pushing for more destruction. And I played along, thinking I could control her. But now I see it for what it was. Claire wasn't just in it for revenge. She thrived on the power it gave her. The chaos fed her, and now that everything is crumbling around us, she's the only one who seems satisfied. I take another drink, feeling the tension in my chest tighten. I should have seen it sooner. Claire was never just a partner in this. She was a threat. And now she holds the one card I can't afford to lose. She knows everything. I stand abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor as I move. The bourbon sloshes in my glass, but I don't care. I need to get out of this house. I need air. I grab my jacket and step outside, the cool night breeze hitting my face. The street is quiet, the house is dark. Everyone is asleep, blissfully unaware of the storm that's been raging between us. I walk down the street, my mind racing, and find myself at the park where Emily and I used to come on lazy Sundays, back when things were simple. I sit on a bench, staring out at the empty playground, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself think about what comes next. The revenge is done, but what now? What's left for me? I close my eyes, the weight of it all crashing down on me. I got my revenge, but at what cost? Emily is gone. Mark is ruined, and Claire is waiting in the wings, ready to strike the moment I falter. I open my eyes and look up at the night sky, the stars barely visible through the haze of the city lights. There's no closure here, no peace. Just the cold reality of what I've become. I've always prided myself on being in control, on making calculated decisions. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of the bigger picture. I let the need for revenge consume me, and now I'm left standing in the ruins of a life I barely recognize. I don't know who I am anymore. The sound of footsteps approaching pulls me from my thoughts, and I look up to see Claire standing there, her expression unreadable. She doesn't say anything at first, just sits down on the bench next to me. For a long moment, we sit in silence, the weight of everything between us hanging heavy in the air. Finally, she speaks. "You did it," she says softly. "You got what you wanted." I don't respond. There's nothing left to say. She sighs, her gaze fixed on the empty playground. And yet here you are, just as lost as before. I turn to look at her, my jaw tightening. Was this all worth it to you? She shrugs, her eyes cold. It was never about being worth it. It was about doing what needed to be done. I shake my head standing. I'm done, Claire. I'm done with all of this. She doesn't try to stop me as I walk away, but her voice follows me into the darkness. You can't walk away from this, Daniel. You can't walk away from who you've become. The words linger in the air long after I'm gone, and as I walk down the empty streets, I realize something. She's right. I've crossed a line I can't uncross. Revenge was supposed to bring me closure, but all it did was take more from me. I'm not the same man I was before this started. I'm colder, more calculating, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back to the way things were. As I step back into the house, the silence greets me like an old friend. I stand in the doorway for a long moment, staring at the life I've left behind. And as I close the door behind me, I know one thing for certain. Revenge didn't bring me peace. It only left me with emptiness.